Welcome everyone to Qdabra's weekly webinar. This is Patrick Halstead, and I'm really happy to have everyone here today. Thank you for joining. This is our first weekly webinar in 2 months, so we can't really call it a weekly webinar anymore. We've been very busy, heads down, working on new form techniques for you, specifically to address the new ChatGPT AI Cambrian explosion, for lack of a better word, this huge new thing that's happened to the world. I don't know if you've been paying attention. I've got 2 questions for you to begin with. Just to start off, we've got a poll, and the first question is, have you actually used ChatGPT? Yes or no? And okay, we're getting results in. Looks like most of you, 2/3, are saying no. And I'm going to close this one off. Actually, now it's half and half. Thank you for being here. And thank you for answering these questions. We're just trying to get in the mind frame here of kind of what we're going to be talking about today. ChatGPT is one of the topics, but we have other topics as well. So the next question, the final question here is, this is multiple choice, so you can actually select more than one. Which of the following features do you think AI can help improve forms with? And hopefully you can see this. We don't have any answers coming in yet. Okay, there we go. So now we've got people responding. I guess this is quite a bit to read. So thank you for reading. Yeah, inputting data, obviously this means autocomplete, voice input, translation. Some people think the whole web is going away and there won't be any UI. I still think humans will need 2-dimensional forms to view things and to verify that they've actually signed something. So the whole idea that everything's going to be voice is kind of far-fetched to me. Routing of form data, this is really just trying to automatically route, automatically connect to data connections. Obviously, autocomplete, that's the first one, but validation is important for improving the form quality. Validation is always a big challenge for forms. And then summarization, we're going to be talking about summarization, translation, and validation for approvals in this webinar. And then we'll talk about designing new forms with ChatGPT probably sometime later this year. We've got a couple other webinars coming for you soon on AI integrations. Thanks for the poll. Just to give you the results, everyone said the first one, and only one person said the last one, design new forms. So, and then there was, I think, a majority for validation and summarization, and about half and half for routing. So that's how that went. Okay, so we got a lot to show today. We got a lot to talk about. I'm just going to switch to my slides. Hopefully you can see them. Mel, can you see my slides?
Yes, I can.
So in today's webinar, we're going to show you kind of this composite solution, which you can add to your forms to help your managers approve requests more quickly, which helps your users who are making the requests. And we're going to be using Google API to automatically convert images into text. And then we're going to feed that along with the form contents to ChatGPT. And then we're going to send all of that to your manager for approval. But we're going to give the manager the ability to ask for smart things, like to translate the request. You're going to see some really cool, amazing things with ChatGPT. It's going to automatically detect problems with the form on submit. So this is really, I think, probably the most interesting thing about this webinar today is this ability for AI integration to automatically detect problems with the form so that the manager doesn't have to think as much and they can just quickly look and see, okay, this is wrong, need to reject it. Okay. And then we're also going to be generating PDFs, as you know. We've done this in the past, but PDFs are important for audit trails, making sure that we have a record of what happened. So the scenario that we're focused on today, we'll quickly move to the demo, but the scenario is a manager has requests to approve. Typically, let's talk about the expense reimbursement form, the expense request form, which is what we're going to demo next. leave request and travel time off, things like that, or other examples. There's lots of examples of these kinds of forms where somebody that's working in a group team needs to submit a request for time off or for expense reimbursement or for travel. And the first person who's going to approve that is the manager. And it's typically not going to go much beyond that. Sometimes if it's a special request, it might go to accounting, bookkeeping. But in general, the manager can make the decision quickly. And the manager doesn't have that many people reporting to them. So they're not going to get that many requests per month. So it's something that we could send to their phone without a huge amount of extra tax. The goals for this webinar, this demo, are to show how to streamline this whole processing of requests using phone, the SMS text. But not just that, but also to show more intelligent approvals with AI. And we'll show that's really the crux of this today. And then finally to record what happened. So why ChatGPT? Why SMS text? And we're using Twilio as the web service for that. Mainly, it's to make it faster and more efficient. So the SMS is about the fast, and the ChatGPT is about the efficient. To sort of give the manager some smarts to save them time and make sure that the requests are done quickly. Okay, so we're going to switch to the demo here, and I'm going to share my screen. And any questions so far? We have questions. We have a SharePoint site. This is online, and we're going to quickly fill out a new expense report form. And the first one, we're going to do two forms. We're going to do one that I approve, and then we'll do another one that we reject. And then what we'll do is we'll talk about what happened with this form. This is a typical form that we've used for webinars in the past, so it should be fairly familiar to you. I'm just going to say medicine reimbursement for the first one. And this is actually a receipt that I copied. I've actually I got some eye drops prescribed to me because I've been looking at my monitor too much lately. And so this is a form, just filling it out, as you can see. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to just type in pharmacy, whatever. I'm going to attach a receipt. You guys have all seen this happen before, right? Now, when I attach the receipt, you can see that there's these new dots here. This is our new modern, contemporary way of. Now, what it just did was it just sent the receipt to Google and got a reply from Google. And I'm just going to say it's $7. Okay. All right, so we'll submit this. We're just going to add the one item there. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to share out my screen on my phone and show you what this looks like here. So this form is actually doing a bunch of things. It's generating the PDF, as you see here. It's actually going to be then submitting the form to SharePoint, and we'll see that in a second. And then it's also going to be using this new technique to send an SMS text message to me. So I'm the manager of myself in this case. And I'm going to share out my screen, hopefully, and this will work. You can see my screen. And we'll switch to messages. And there's the message. You have a new pending form, expense report 406. This shows a medicine reimbursement of $7 for eye drops purchased on 6/12. The receipt shows a total amount of 830 yen. I'm in Japan, which matches the expense report when converted to USD. Shall I translate this for you? Okay, so we're going to actually say yes. Please translate this into Japanese. And this is the first, for the first thing that we're showing here is this this feature of summarization. So the form is taking a Japanese receipt, it's sending it to Google, it's getting the Japanese back, and it's summarizing it in English. And it's also showing that it's valid, so based on the exchange rates. There's a lot of really interesting things happening here. And now it's translating into Japanese. Okay, so I'm going to approve the request. It's very inexpensive. And I'm going to add a comment. Looks good. Okay, now what we're going to see here is we're going to see this get verified. So this is live, and I'm texting a server in the US from Japan. And that server is actually connecting to our ChatGPT instance, and it's actually going back and forth. So there's a little bit of a delay here to get the confirmation. Hopefully this will work. This is a live demo. And then we'll switch back and we'll see. Okay, so now it gives me this link as a manager. Okay, I've approved it. I'm going to switch to the PDF and take a look at it. And as a manager, I get the PDF. The form is approved. You can see that is the form I just submitted, eyedrops, right? And looks good. That was the comment. It also attaches the receipt that I attached, which is all in Japanese. But then we have Google's translation, or image to text at the bottom. So this is what Google added, which we added to the view. Okay, so now let's switch back to our form library. Let's see what happened here. And you can see that I've gotten emails too. We have a workflows running on this. So there is the expense report that I just submitted, and it's now approved. And if I click on this, I'll see that it was updated in the library. So that even though we're using text with the manager, we're able to update the form in the library. And this is really important because we want some kind of well, we obviously have to record that happened, right? So this is showing us that we actually attached the text comment from my phone. And if you scroll down here, we'll see that obviously looks good. There's the comment right there. And you can see that it is approved. So that's the first demo, and we're going to talk about what happened again with this. But first, let's take a quick look at email. We're generating an email for this request. And as the submitter, I get an email saying, well, as the manager, I get an email saying it's been assigned to me. And I can look into this, but I used my phone instead. And then finally, as the submitter, it's telling me that it was approved. Okay, so let's take a quick look at what happened. So we spent a couple of months working on this integration. So there's a lot of pieces, a lot of moving pieces in here. On the left, you see everything happening with the browser in the client space. In the middle is the web services. This is the Google image processing, the Qdabra form services, ChatGPT, the Twilio SMS text service. And then on the far right, we have the server, SharePoint or SQL. So the first thing that happens is we take that receipt, and before submitting the form, we're actually sending the receipt to Google. And Google is replying with the text. And then we're submitting the form to the Qdabra form service. We have this new service called Submit. I think it's called SMS request. So basically, you're calling a new web method in Forms Viewer. Basically, it's published via qfs.formscore.com. So it's a web API. It's not in Forms Viewer's client side. It's in actually the web service layer, the middle tier. And then what happens is that service sends messages to ChatGPT to get the summary of the form. So it takes the text from the form, it asks ChatGPT for a summary, and then it sends a text message to Twilio saying, hey, can you text the manager? And then Twilio does that. Twilio forwards the message to the manager, right? And then the manager says, give me a translation or a summary. And then Twilio responds to Qdabra Form Services, and we call GPT again for the summary or the translation. GPT responds, and we send the reply back to the manager. Okay, this is trying to explain what's happening. The manager finally says approve or reject, and then it goes back to our form services, and we send the form to SharePoint. So we open the form anonymously. from the server, from the middle tier, with a special code to approve it or reject it. And then that submits it to SharePoint, and then we're done. There's a confirmation from SharePoint, and there's an update. Any questions on this? And the manager gets the PDF at the end. I think that's the last one there. I want to thank Ujwal, who's on the call, for creating this wonderful slide. So it's very easy to do this and to add this to your forms. Let's try one more example. And while I'm doing this, please feel free to ask a question or two. We're going to ask Mel here how she did this in a minute, so it won't just be me. I'm just looking, we don't have any questions yet, so I'm going to ignore the questions while I do the next demo. So we'll close this 6 months report. We're going to do one more. We're going to do one more, and this one's going to be kind of interesting because we're going to reject it. But it's going to show a couple really cool features of this AI integration. So for this one, I'm going to say webinar demo, but I'm going to misspell webinar. Okay, whatever. We'll see what happens in a minute. We're going to say office supplies, and we're going to say today, and we're going to say Vision Pro goggles, right? And these are the new Apple goggles that are not available yet. But we're just going to actually fake it, and we're going to add a bogus receipt, just some random receipt here that doesn't match. And we're going to say that the amount, you can see it very quickly called Google on that one. The amount is $34.99. I think that's what they're charging. It's a lot of money. Okay, so we're going to submit this one. We'll see what happens here. And of course, I have to share out my screen again. So I'm going to do that. Okay, so you can see my phone, hopefully. You can see the last one has been approved. I haven't received the new one yet. There is a little bit of a lag here. It takes a few seconds to get the new request. Hopefully this will come in. Once again, we're dealing with a live demo. And I'm going to actually just switch back and make sure that everything went okay here. Okay. Form submitted successfully. But I haven't gotten a response yet. Do you think that the demo would work? Okay, well, obviously this is not working for some reason. I'm trying 2 in a row, and I didn't test like this before. So we'll ask Jimmy and Ujwal to take a quick look at that. And while they're taking a look at this, we're going to switch to the slides and have Mel explain what she did to the form. And we'll come back to this later. Thanks for being patient. So Mel, do you have audio? Can you quickly tell us what you did?
Yeah, sure. Would you like me to show
Screen. Your info path designer screen.
Okay, great. Okay, so yeah, we've got the expense report that's familiar to you opened in here in the designer. So the first step is to add the XML as a data connection in your form. This XML file is just something we came up with. It needs to have the fields that's needed to pass into the API, right? Things like the URL, the phone number of the recipient. You're going to see this in the slide deck again, and you probably saw it already. And then the input that will get sent into your SMS, your phone number, right? So we need to have these fields in our InfoPath data source. I mean, as a secondary data source, or you can also add it in the main data source, but it doesn't really matter. But we're doing it this way. You're going to add the XML file as a data connection, and then just add rules. So we're going to look at the submit button here and see that we've got centralized rules that calls those actions in our form logic. So we're just going to switch there. So here in our submit rule, I've got this first setting the form link, because this is important as far as the the web service or the API knows which or how to update the form back to the library, like to for it to update the status and all the other form details, like the comment too. So we're setting the form link, and the way I'm doing that is we have another centralized rule over here to build the form URL. So we're just simply including the library name as well as the form name in that URL, and then adding the FV anon so that it's an external link. The user won't need an account in SharePoint to be able to do this, to be able to approve forms, right? And so going back to our submit rule here, this is where we now send the SMS or have it processed using our submit request.
Why are you still using InfoPath Designer?
Right. I don't know. I just have it already. I should really be used to using Forms Designer. Okay, so yeah, we set the method first, and then we call the rules again in this trigger send SMS node, which is right here. So sending the SMS, we're again setting the values from our XML data source, the form template ID, I believe, and the template name. Those are optional, but it's always good to have identifiers for whatever you're doing, whatever you're submitting, right? And then phone number, we set it dynamically we pull it from our SharePoint list, the resources list in our SharePoint site, to the manager's phone number, since he's the one who's going to approve. Then I'm setting the URL parameter.
I mean, ideally you'd have the manager sort of activate their phone for that process, right? So that
activate their phone number. Yeah.
I guess you could just type it in, but they might feel like there's a privacy violation if somebody just typed in their phone number. So you'd have some kind of an activation process for that, right?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, okay.
We do have a separate activation process for it. Right. And then this custom QRoles command that is called GetViewText, this extracts the current views, all the text in the current view that will get they'll then get submitted to the webhook, right? And then ChatGPT summarizes it in the way that it's going to be included in that SMS text message, and the result will be set as in the summary input parameter. And then we also have a separate method for when updating the request, like you only want to let the manager know that the approval or the rejection was successful. So that's a different URL.
So Mel, I mean, sort of summing up everything you did for this form, I mean, would you say it's an hour, 4 hours, 20 hours? What's the outlay?
For adding this into the form, it's just, since we have this sample form, it's just copying and pasting the rules, I guess. So less than an hour, I would say.
Great, thanks. I'm going to switch back to my screen. I finally got the text message. I'm not sure why ChatGPT was so slow to respond. How's the voicemail? Am I more clear now? I switched to a different headset.
It's a lot clearer, yes.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so as you can see, here's the, can you see the phone?
I can.
Wonderful, thank you. So here's the new request that came in. It took a minute or so to come in, and here it is, 407, expense report created for webinar demo. Notice that I misspelled webinar, but it actually fixed that. Office supplies purchased is Vision Pro from Apple at an expense of $3,499. Receipt details, address, blah, blah, blah. Receipt does not match the expense report. Now, isn't that cool? Okay, we're going to reject this one. No go, bro. Actually, I'm just going to R space no go, bro. Well, it didn't get the R. We're just going to reject. And switch off the audio. Okay, so that's my rejection. And I think the thing that's really interesting about this is that ChatGPT gives us intelligence. So we're able to actually validate the data for the manager so the manager can make a more intelligent decision. And there's the quick reply with the PDF. Let's just take a look at this. There it is. Rejected, no go, bro. Okay, so I'm going to switch back to my desktop here. And we're going to wrap this webinar up. We've got a quick set of survey questions for you at the end, just 4 questions. But I think let's just summarize the benefits. Mainly, we're talking about helping managers make decisions faster on the go with their phones, but at the same time capturing what they did so you have a receipt for future reference. And mainly there's a typo here, but the integration with ChatGPT is the thing that is really adding an extra element to the quickness and the ability of these forms. Appreciate your questions. I just answered one. One of the questions we may have, thanks Misty for being here, is, well, what is this going to be extra? And the answer is really no. We're not going to include it in basic plan, after 3 months. You'll have you'll have the carte blanche. You can use this feature in all of your forms. It's available soon. Not yet, but in a few months, it'll just become available for anyone who has SharePoint Online. If you have SharePoint on-prem, actually, if you have Qdabra Forms on-prem, you're not using SharePoint because we don't necessarily need SharePoint to run, then you just need to contact us and schedule an upgrade, and we'll do that. So this is an addition to the Qdabra Form services, as we showed in the topology slide earlier. We have a special offer for you only, for the people who are actually on this call. You can make your managers happy soon. We're going to give you free support to add this feature to your forms. Mel said 1 hour. We're going to give you 7 hours. It's about $1,000 of value, just for you, not for anyone else in your team, just for you. So if you want to, access us and be one of the first ones to adopt this new feature for one of your forms, not 2 of your forms, we're only going to do 1. Then you just have to reach out to us and say, first of all, you have to be in this webinar. We have a list of people who attended. You have to have a Qdabra Forms license. That's pretty obvious. Everyone here, I think, has one. And then you just need to send us an XSN before next week. So you need to go into your forms and say, here's the one I want to do this on. It's a request form, right? Think about the requirements we mentioned earlier. It's an approval request that a manager can make a decision on. It doesn't have to go up to higher levels. So it's pretty simple. And it's for somebody on their team. So it's limited to a set of people that person reports to. And then you commit to deploying the form before October 1st. We're going to get it done for you, help you to get it done and deployed in the August timeframe, probably, if not sooner. And then if you have any feedback from your users, we would love to hear about that. So with that, I think we're almost going to wrap up here. Any questions on this webinar? Just going to open up the questions tab here. Like I said, we have a quick, very, very quick survey for you at the end, and really appreciate you being here today. We have spent a lot of time trying to figure out how AI can help forms. And we have 2 more scenarios coming in the next month. In fact, the first one is on June 29th. We're going to show you how to add an AI chatbot to your form so your form can be smart. People can use a task pane in their forms to ask questions. Before that, Jimmy and Hillary will be talking about the new version of the DBXL XTP. So we have a new version of DBXL XTP for migrating forms from DBXL. This is a relatively esoteric topic, but that'll be next week. And then we have Jimmy's going to talk about the new version of Forms Zero that we just launched last week or 2 weeks ago, and Forms Designer 2.0. We're going to talk about the next version, the next AI topic on July 13th. We're going to show you our new customer support portal where you can get information on, you can file a support ticket, you can look up your support hours, you can see what your usage is, and you can ask our smart chatbot that's been trained on our support tickets questions. You can quickly resolve an issue. We'll be doing that demo in about a month on July 13th. And then finally, after a very long delay, we're going to finally show you this Central Flows V2, which we were hoping to get out last year, and we've just been delayed and delayed and delayed. So that's what's coming up. I want to thank everyone for being here today. If you have questions, this is a great time to ask them. If not, I don't see any questions, but I want to thank Ujwal and our team in Nepal for doing this amazing work over the last 2 months. And I want to thank Jimmy for integrating it with Qdabra Form Services and getting it live in the US. But most importantly, Mel did all the work on the forum to integrate this with the webhook with the new SMS request message. You don't have to have ChatGPT to get this functionality. You're just going to get it out of the box. You just have to call this new method. So I hope that was pretty clear. Don't see any questions out there. Actually, maybe I'm not looking at this correctly. There is one question. Can you talk about how the phone numbers are gathered? Thank you, Richard, for that question. Yeah, so I was kind of alluding to this in my comment to Mel earlier, that we have a separate solution for adding phone numbers for authentication. So we have a cell phone based authentication solution that we provide that allows you to have people log in externally from SharePoint. They don't have to have a SharePoint login. And then when they log in externally, it asks them for the phone number and it verifies them by sending them a text message to their phone number and activating them. And then when it does that, it encrypts their phone number in a SharePoint list. And then from there on, it can use that manager's phone number or that user's phone number to verify who they are. Typically, the way we do that is we ask them to type in their last name and the last four of their phone number, the last 4 digits. We look up their information in the SharePoint list. We find it. We text them a code, or they can use an authentication app, and then they can log in remotely without having to have a SharePoint login. So that's the typical way we use that solution. But you can imagine using it here as well to activate new numbers. So we don't necessarily want to activate all the numbers. We want to get the user's consent before we do that. And that would be one way to do that, would be to use that solution. Even though that solution is mainly for external access today, you could think about using that for this approval access. I hope that answered your question. I want to thank everyone for being here today. We are going to do a webinar next week as well. We hope you can make it. And have a great one. Talk to you soon. Thanks. Thanks, Mel.
Yeah, thanks, Patrick. Bye, everyone.